Hi, everyone. Hi, Sasha. Hi, Alona. My name is Bogdan. I am a founder of Holy Water. We are organizing a series of Ask Me Anything sessions with people who's been helping Ukraine to win the war, as well as with prominent people in crypto and NFT communities. Our goal is to get key insights and ideas on how people can help Ukraine, and also to unite crypto, NFT, and other communities to help Ukraine win this war. Today, our guest is Alona Shevchenko, who is a fellow Ukrainian and who is also a co-founder of Ukraine DAO, the organization which has been helping Ukraine a lot, which has already raised 8 million for Ukraine and which is not stopping. Hello, Alona. It's an honor to have you here, and I'm glad to speak to you today.
It's an honor to be here. I really loved the first AMA that you did with Dima. I watched it, I think, like 3 times. It was like a very philosophical, very deep conversation that you don't often get in with other podcasts that I listen to. So yeah, I was very impressed. Great job with that one.
Thanks a lot. Okay, we've received about 50 questions from the people who've minted our collection, also from our artists and from our team. But we've selected about 20 questions, and most of them are related to your work at Ukraine DAO, but there are some also questions about your personal views and stuff like that. So let's start with the first one. Do you remember the first day of war? Like, how did you find out about it? What were your actions straight after you found out about it?
I would take a step back and tell you how I found out that the invasion was going to happen, because I think that's where this story really started for me. I mean, it started a long time ago, but that's how everything that I do now kind of assembled. So I found out about the invasion on the 19th of January. So it was like, wow. It was like 6 weeks before, right? And my friend who's Ukrainian, she said to me that she has a friend in Ukrainian intelligence, and so they alerted her that I remember it like word by word, the likelihood of the invasion was through the roof. And so she was like, I'm just letting you know because I know this, And so I called my parents, and I knew for a fact that they were not gonna like take it seriously, because in Ukraine we always have invasion dates, right? It's like part of hybrid warfare, and it's like the rumors that Russia would be spreading in different information channels that the invasion was gonna happen on a certain date, right? And then the first time you are scared, right? Like people are panicking, someone is stocking up food. But then once it has happened like 100 times, you are going to be naturally like desensitized to it, right? Yeah. You cannot be constantly living in fear. And so Ukrainian people kind of get used to it, as messed up as it sounds. And so when I was calling my parents, I already knew that they were going to be like, okay, another invasion date. So I called them and I'm like, guys, I know you're not gonna do anything, but here is the information that I know, and like do whatever you want with it. And obviously, like I didn't have any like proof. And they, I mean, yeah, let's put it this way: they didn't take it seriously, and they were like, Alona, everything's gonna be fine. Don't worry. Like we're not going anywhere anyway. I was like, fine. And then on that day, I wasn't sure myself, right, that something was going to happen. And then a few days later, I kind of sat down and I opened news from different countries, and I started like comparing how, what was the narrative, in each of them. And that's when I get really, really worried, because I am from Ukraine, obviously, and I know how Western countries, for example, normally react to Russian aggression towards Ukraine. They are usually, it's become a meme, right? Unfortunately. So normally, like at first, nothing happens at all. Then in a few days, someone says they're deeply concerned. Yeah, that's 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 like a phrase that's become a meme now. And then there is a stage of strong condemnation. It always follows. And then what's next? And then they say that whoever is responsible is going to be held accountable, right? I don't know what's happening.
Yeah.
And sometimes they like struggle to name who is responsible, which is baffling to me. You know, it doesn't take a genius to figure it out. And so, but what they do not normally do is they don't start sending troops to NATO troops to Eastern Europe. They don't start evacuating the embassies, the diplomats. And so the kind of discourse that I saw was very different from what I saw back in like 2014 or 2015. And so that really worried me, you know, because it's people and countries can say whatever they want, but you should, when you're trying to understand what's happening, you should always look at their actions. And so when I saw what they were doing, that really worried me. And so after that, my life over the following few weeks, kind of my mental health was like going downhill very fast because I was trying to tell everyone I was going to protest. I wrote an open letter that my friends from Free Rosda published on their blog 3 days before the invasion. And it was like, it was not as effective as I hoped, obviously. And so it was very disheartening to see.
But you published it before the actual date, right?
Yeah, on the 21st I published it. And I said in this open letter that I wrote like a section, that's called what's happening in Ukraine. And I say in this letter that a large war in Europe is likely to happen, to start within the next few days or weeks. And afterwards, I opened it after the invasion and I read it, and it was very upsetting, you know, to see it. And it's something that I've been trying to like warn people about since 2015, because when the Revolution of Dignity happened and then Russia invaded Ukraine effectively, some people call it annexation, but we consider it invasion, which it is. And so back in the day, I was really confused by the fact that Russian people were allowing their government to do that. And so in order to understand that, I went on the news website, and that was 2014, right? So I don't know when that kind of propaganda about Ukrainians started, but that was the first time I paid attention to it. And so what I saw on the news there that was broadcasted to Russian people, it was just incredible, like blatant lies about Ukrainians. So they were showing them completely made up stories, you know. So every country has propaganda, like that's just how things are. But it's like there is a difference between presenting things through a certain perspective or completely fabricating like actual news stories that are shown on federal channels. And so to name a couple of my favorite ones, the first one is The Crucified Boy. I encourage everyone to look it up on Wikipedia. And that is a story about a Russian-speaking boy who was allegedly crucified by the Ukrainian National Guard because he spoke Russian. It's like a classic example of Russian propaganda. Obviously, no evidence of that happening was ever found because it didn't happen. Another one that I absolutely love that story. It's Klaptik Zemli Dva Raba. Remember?
Yeah.
Parcel of land and 2 slaves. The Ukrainian soldiers were allegedly promised for executing Russian speakers. Like you can look it up. There is an actual video of that news report that was showed on like federal Russian channels. It's insane. I always like joke, our soldiers are still waiting for their parcels of land and to slave. It's maybe there is like COVID shortages, COVID related shortages with that. I'm not sure what is happening, but it's infuriating. And so the way Ukrainians were portrayed in those news stories, it was very similar to how German Nazi propaganda framed Jewish people to Germans before the World War II. And so I found it very concerning, to say the least. And I was trying to, again, to tell everyone about it. I did a presentation at my uni in Sussex in 2015. And so I said at that talk that Russia is becoming a fascist state. And in 2015, that was like a ridiculous statement, I guess. So people didn't laugh at me to my face, but I'm sure they did behind my back. People in the West could not see it because of Russian propaganda. And it works in Western countries very differently, right? So it's a lot more subtle here. And so it's like, you often don't realize that you're watching content from a platform that is actually like a Kremlin controlled or linked media source. And so up to this day, even now, it's very hard for Ukraine to get the help that it needs because of that information war, and that's why I constantly get in like online arguments with people who post that kind of stuff, because it's not, some people say to me, like, Alona, don't pay attention to idiots, like, don't get involved. I think that's a very dangerous approach, because the reason why this is happening right now, it started from information war, and it's continuing, and it would never happen without it. That's what kind of made it possible. And so whenever I see someone publish something that says that Ukraine has a neo-Nazi problem or something like that, I call them out. Or if I see that on LinkedIn, I leave a comment saying, you should be embarrassed of yourself. And everybody should be doing this. It's not, it shouldn't be socially acceptable to say this kind of stuff. And so anyway, fast forward to this February, I was going to protest Solid. I met a lot of really good people there. And then I found out about on the night, so I'm don't even know from what to start from. So I had like, I would say, a mental breakdown in the last 2 weeks before the invasion started, because it was just like a feeling of helplessness, right? Because it's like you are shouting from every window and you're not heard. And to me, like, one of the most painful things was when everyone in the UK was happy because Putin announced he's withdrawing troops from the border. There was like a buildup of Russian troops around Ukraine, and he announced he was withdrawing them. And I have to say, like, Ukrainian people see things very different from the Western audience. We have like first-hand experience with that propaganda and all those lies. So when Putin announced that, I was like, oh my God, like that was the worst thing that I could hear, because that's, not a single word of truth ever comes out from anyone from the Russian government. So when he said that, I was like, there is definitely going to be an invasion. Whereas here, people were like, Alona, why aren't you happy? Like, you see, you were worried, and look what happened. And now I'm just there, like, trying to not kick off. It's very difficult, right, to not get annoyed when people say stuff like that. And so, yeah, it was very difficult 2 weeks. And then on the night of the invasion, it was like, on the day before the state of emergency was announced in Ukraine, remember? And then I was just like, I think it was like 3 a.m. London time or something.
Yeah.
And I just sat in my living room I couldn't sleep. And I was like, I had like a really bad intuitive feeling, and I got a DM from my friend in Kharkiv who was telling me they were getting bombed. So I went on Twitter and looked it up, and I saw that almost every major Ukrainian city was getting bombed. And yeah, it was a feeling of shock that I was not prepared for, even though I knew it was going to be bad the whole, for a long time, but I could never anticipate exactly what the scale of it was going to be, because the mistake that we often make when we try to predict Russia's behavior, Putin's behavior, decision making, is that like they are going to do things that make sense, right? And there is this like cognitive bias that things that make sense to us, they are very different from things that make sense to them in their warped world that they live in. And so that is why I personally thought that they are just going to do something in Eastern Ukraine, where I'm from. And then I think on the night, like even Lviv was getting bombed. And I started calling my other friends in Kharkiv. And I said, of course, there is nothing on the news. Like they haven't, you need to make the news, you need to, it takes a bit of time. So it wasn't on TV yet. And then about 10 minutes later, my dad called me back, and he said to me, we basically said goodbye to each other, because we didn't know. I'm based in London, by the way. I've lived here for the last 8 years or so. And so it was one of those conversations that no one should really have with their parents. He said to me that he's sorry if he ever did something wrong. He told me that if I ever have a son, to call him Victor after him. And he also said to not assume that they died if you lose contact, because back then people we didn't know if we would have mobile reception by the morning. And I was like, are you guys going to evacuate now? What's the plan? And he was like, no, we'll be defending our home. He said we don't need to be evacuated from our home. And so yeah, for about an hour I was like in a state of shock, and then I got really angry that day. And I feel like I've been in that angry state for the up to now, and I'm in that state right now. I used to be very scared of public speaking. I was like a very agreeable person, very like scared to speak to any audience. People laugh at me now when I say that, because that's gone. And I think that is because that's not because I suddenly became very confident. I don't think I did, but it's because it's like an existential thing, right? Like if I don't say those things now, the stakes are very high for me and for every Ukrainian person. And that is the reason for that courage that people see from Ukrainians. It's not because we were not born like absolute heroes, but it's either that or very horrible death to us. And so that's why we don't have a choice, right, other than to show that courage. And so a few days before the invasion, I set up a group chat with two of my friends from that I knew like through my work for Free Rosdow. And so it was me, Steve, and Matt, our co-founders, and I said to them that I'm starting to seriously consider setting up Ukraine DAO that would basically support volunteer networks in Ukraine that have been accepting crypto for years. Ukraine is it's very digitally developed, much more than people realized, I think. And so it's very crypto friendly. Our government is very crypto friendly. And so that's kind of how Ukraine DAO started. And then on the night of the invasion, I dropped them messages in the group chat that I have no recollection how I did it. I then later went through the chat and saw them, and I recognized them, but I have my memories of from the first few days are very they're like, it was like in a fog.
Yeah.
So I can't I can't even remember much from that time. So that's kind of, sorry for the very long answer, but hopefully I addressed some other questions in the meantime as well.
You've actually addressed all of them, so thank you for your time today.
Seriously.
No, I'm joking. But you've addressed a couple of questions. So my next questions, namely about how your personality actually changed after the war, and you've already mentioned that. So let's move on to the to the creation of Ukraine DAO. There is a question: how did you get that idea, and how did the idea of selling Ukraine flag come to your mind?
About the idea, a lot of my friends, actually quite a few, suggested to me to set up Ukraine DAO. So I couldn't even remember now who said it first to me, and I guess that idea will come to them because I've been contributing to different DAOs for quite a while, and I'm also very passionate about Ukraine. So it kind of like made sense to people to suggest that to me. But again, because I've been contributing to different DAOs, I know what it takes to launch one. And I would say, like, I didn't have like a huge following or like crazy connections, or I just didn't have the resources to launch a project like that. And so neither I had the kind of bandwidth for starting to work on something like that. So for quite a while, I was kind of yeah, I would say to people, like, I don't have what it takes to do that kind of thing. And then one of my friends, Matt, our co-founder, he kind of forced me to go on a video call with him, and he was like you're doing this. And I later said, I asked him, like, why did you do that? Like, we never have conversations like that. And he was like, I don't know, I just had this like intuitive feeling. And then, sorry, what was the second question?
So how did the idea of selling the Ukrainian flag come to your
Ukrainian
mind?
flag.
Yeah.
It actually didn't come to my mind. So we are a DAO. So lots of work that was happening in the first 2 days was actually done by other people. And I had like close to zero involvement in that. I was super busy doing other stuff. So yeah, and that's, I cannot, I'm not going to be like, this is how it came to my mind, because it is that is something that was taken care of by other DAO members.
Okay, but anyway, it's been extremely successful in raising donations. I think it's 8 million now, right?
8 million, but not all of that is from the flag.
Yeah.
The flag, I think, raised something like almost $7 million. And then we also have an ERC20 Ethereum address for wallet for donations. So people can still donate to that, and we will be, I'm sure we will be doing new fundraisers soon. So yeah, that was I'm very happy with how that went, and very happy with how funds distribution went afterwards. I don't think we could have gone better about it.
Yeah, you're doing an amazing job. But what do you think are the major factors between the success of the Ukrainian flag and just donations that are going to your address? Like, because there are a lot of people who are trying to launch NFT collections, to launch some fundraising initiatives and stuff like that, but not all of them are raising so much money. So what are the main success factors here?
I am not going to talk about the reasons for the success of this particular NFT, but I can give I think I can give advice that could be helpful on how to kind of not succeed. I don't know if that's the right word, but how to kind of become.
Let's call it efficient.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So when you work, I think the nature of Web3 communities is very different from like Web2 corporate kind of world. In Free was the reason why I was even able to form Ukraine DAO was because once I saw on Twitter, I saw Free Rose DAO it was forming.
Yeah.
And that's a DAO that has freeing Ross Ulbricht from prison as its mission. Ross Ulbricht is an American computer scientist who created the marketplace Silk Road. And so people were able to, he was like, he was like an idealistic kind of person. He is a very much like libertarian. And so he believes that people should be free to exchange anything they want, provided that doesn't harm anyone. So for example, guns were not allowed on Silk Road, like child porn was not allowed on Silk Road. Everything else, and 80% of the traffic on the platform, I think it was like weed for personal use. And so he got, for that, he was obviously a non-violent offense. First-time offender, he got a double life sentence and 40 years on top with no parole. The only option that he's left with now is presidential pardon. And so the work in Free Rose DAO is kind of focused on raising awareness about him and his work, his artwork, and also making that political price that the future president will need to pay for granting the pardon, making it like lower. And so when I saw that project, I was very happy because I was very upset by what happened to us for many years, and so I joined the Discord. And the Discord was a bit messy there. And I was already like, I was very overworked on another project, but I was a community manager in another project. And I was like, guys, if you need any help, I can help out with moderation. And then Trippy, I think it was Trippy contacted me, which he's an amazing NFT artist who was also involved in Ukraine DAO. With the NFT side of work. And he reached out to me and he asked some questions about my kind of background and why it's mattered to me, this course. And I explained to him, and very quickly then they granted me eventually like all the like admin permissions in the Discord, and I started helping to like manage the community and like manage the Discord, like coordinate work and so on. And so eventually I was voted by the DAO to be on the core team of contributors. And that happened because I came in and I was like, okay, this is missing, so I'm gonna do it or offer to do it. And if people like it, then we will like add that. So the nature of like my the nature of my involvement was with no like expectation of getting anything back. It was just like to help them, because I could see very clearly things that were wrong. And in Web3 there is like two kinds of people. There is people who come in and like, this is wrong, this is not that, this is, you guys did a shit job at this. And those people are very rarely useful. They very rarely get anything done. And then there is people who like come in and just, create stuff, do stuff together and help each other. And so I hope to believe that I belong to the second type. And so that is how I just ended up in a place where people from Free Rose DAO were very willing to help me, because they knew that I wasn't like chasing any like materialistic kind of gain, and they helped me up to these days. I'm so grateful to them, because even when I became like pretty much dysfunctional over those couple of weeks before the invasion, I just couldn't get much done. It was a protest every day, and they would just like send me a loving message once a day saying like, we are there for you, like we love you, and they help me with Ukraine DAO like every single day. which I'm super grateful for. And so my point was try to develop personal connections with people based on you being helpful.
Mhm.
So because lots of people kind of the mistake they make when they reach out to someone, they instantly like start asking for something, and um, the human psychology works this way, that it's an instant like turn off for us, right? Like we don't I don't mind like mutual help, but it should not be like that transactional. Like if when you
Yeah.
reach out to someone, like ask them what you can be helpful with, or even better, offer some like a particular help that you can provide, right? Because it's like, don't be vague. So for example, I don't know, if you're a designer, for example, make an image and like send it to the project, and if they like it, they'll get you on board with them, right? So just do stuff for others. That's I guess would be my point.
Yeah, that's a very great advice. Thank you. There is a question about the structure of Ukraine DAO and about how the work is organized. So how is it being managed, and how does the decision-making process work?
That's a great question. So in the beginning, obviously, the DAO was very messy. And it was basically a Telegram group chat with all the core contributors working on the project and other people like helping them. And that was, it was absolutely normal that it was messy, because it's like, it was a very urgent matter to raise and send the maximum amount of to Ukraine, and like the biggest priority was like the safety of funds and like good reputation of the charities that we send those funds to.
Yeah.
So no one had time for like setting up, writing up docs and so on. Our biggest priority was to be helpful to Ukrainians, because a lot of people, they want to help Ukraine, but they are not prepared to do the things that Ukrainians are asking for, which to me, it's like, it's quite counterintuitive, right? Because it's, I think if you want to help someone, then you should ask them what help they need, right? And if you can provide the help, that's great. But if you don't, then don't pretend that you're trying to help them, right? If I'm asking you for salt and you're giving me pepper, like that's a very limited use. And so something that I kind of try to make, that's something that I try to make clear to people from the beginning, and other Ukrainian people in the DAO too, is that if you asked a person in Ukraine at that time, like who needs to be supported before anything else, the answer would, in almost 100% of the occasions, would be the armed forces of Ukraine. Because Ukraine was obviously, like, we were preparing for this war for quite a while. We knew it was a possibility, but it's still kind of caught us off guard in many ways. And so our guys defending us, they did not have everything they needed. And so in Ukraine, there is this incredible NGO loved by every Ukrainian person that's called Come Back Alive. And so it was like a priority to be of help to them, because something that many people in Ukraine don't understand, many people outside Ukraine don't understand, there is no civilians right now. There is no distinction between the army and civilians. Everyone has to fight for their life and to help people who are fighting at the front line. So it's not a concept that we even think about. Civilians, like humanitarian and so on. It's very it's a big misconception that I had to address with the community in the beginning. But I was like very unapologetic about it, because it's an existential thing. there is no other way for Ukraine to defend itself, because it's a completely unprovoked attack, and we've seen what Russia is doing in the towns that it occupies. It's a genocide. And so the charities that the fund distribution was like that. The largest chunk of funds went to Come Back Alive. Then the second largest amount went to Ukraine's official crypto wallet. Then also we made a big donation, probably about $500,000 or something, to Outright, that supports LGBT people in crisis in Ukraine. And they already published Ukraine Fund impact report, which was I was very moved when I saw it. I cried a little bit, because it's like, there is a difference when you when you see kind of the impact of that donation on the ground. And then also there were a few smaller charities for mental health supports, rescuing animals, and so on. So how the decisions are made right now, that is a separate conversation. So after that initial kind of hype died down, I was left with the very difficult task of how to structure this DAO. And for that, I have found, I went through loads of resources, and it's like, and I also talked to other DAO people. We constantly have conversations with Gary from Dream DAO, Aaron, amazing guy from Govern, a lot of other, Dima Buterin helps me a lot. Spoke to him last time. His friend, also called Dima, who has an amazing project called Power Insight, and they specialize in DAO security, which is like amazing. I mean, it's a very much needed thing these days. And so on Dima's advice, I found this book.
Yeah, the Advantage, yeah?
The Advantage, yeah. It's by Patrick Lencioni. And so Dima recommended this book to me like a while ago, and I regret not starting it back then, because something that a lot of kind of DAO leaders and entrepreneurs and so on, they don't understand is that in order to go fast, you need to slow down first, and that's the book addresses that too. And so you cannot the essence of it is that you cannot have a healthy organization without having, like, it basically says organizational health is more important than organizational intelligence. So it's almost intelligence is everyone likes smart people and smart decisions. Everyone wants to be right, but that's not what's going to define the success of the organization. Intelligence is very rarely a problem. Organizational health is a huge problem for many DAOs, companies. And so this book is not about DAOs, right? It's about organizations in general, and it can be applied to anything at all. So I would recommend to everyone who is involved in any like management, collaboration in general, I think it would be useful for everyone to have a look at this book. And so right now I'm kind of incorporating the advice in this book into how Ukraine DAO works. And the current structure, like I also like want to take into account what we already have, because fundraising is very important, but it's not the only thing that we do. We have lots of different working groups. We have design, we have an NFT working group where we share some ideas about what we can do with that. We have operations. We have obviously like multi-sig treasury group. We have a group that I'm super proud of, particularly proud of their work that is focused on like promoting media literacy and fact-checking and countering Russian propaganda. And they do absolutely incredible work. They're very active. And so it's just about how, to me, it's like about how to look at what we already have and what works and where we had issues, and also kind of incorporating the things that I've learned so far into that organizational structure. so that we become like a better functioning team, and so that I can take days off, because I've not had a single day off since the invasion. And it's like, I want to kind of decentralize myself out of out of being involved in every single thing, because it just it's draining, it's like constant 24/7. The DAO is it's big, and it's the way I see it is it's been more of a network than like a, a rigid organization, because it's like some people, they all come in, they have like a certain expertise, and I'm like, can you help us with this? And they're like, yeah. And we do something together, and they contribute something very valuable, and then they go on to do the next thing, and that's cool. And that's how it should be, right? Like when we think about DAO contributors, we often we assume that it's going to be like every day we slave to the DAO, promised by Russian propaganda, parcel of London to DAO slaves. And so and so I don't want it to be that way. I want people to be able to contribute something to our DAO without knowing anything about crypto, Web3, I don't know, DeFi, DAOs, Ethereum, whatever. And so I kind of I wrote like a list of tools or apps that new contributors can set up or should set up that they can use. And so I'm trying to like write up documentation in a way that's just gonna allow maximum contribution with like minimum friction. And the most important thing in that is that we need to be very clear about who we are and what we do and why we exist. And so that is why writing up, I guess, the key, like the manifesto, setting out our mission, vision, and values, that's been the one of the hardest things, actually, because we had like a list with our values, and then yesterday we sat down with our editor, we just rewrote them completely. Because they did not they have to be very specific, I've realized. They have to, your values that you set out, they have to describe what makes you different from others, right? Because there is like lots of like those tired words that we also included. It's like integrity, transparency, like blah, 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 decentralization. Yeah, that should be implied, so that becomes like a meaningless statement, right? Because pretty much on every website or every organization's website, you will find that. And that doesn't tell you that doesn't tell anything to the person who will be reading that. Like, what are you guys about? How are you different from this project or that project? And so those values, they have to communicate it. And then the key to onboarding new contributors will be making sure that they are a good culture fit for that. Because I've realized it doesn't matter how smart someone is, it doesn't matter how, like, I don't know, famous or whatever else someone is, if they are not the right culture fit, then there is going to be conflicts, and there is going to be tension, and there is going to be like all sorts of troubles. So that can all be avoided largely by writing, but by making it very clear what you are about and what someone joining you should be about. So I guess sorry for very long answers.
I think it's really similar to building a company. It sounds basically the same. Yeah, it's hard work, but
it's very hard.
I'm wondering, like, you've mentioned decentralization and transparency, like principles of the organization, and it's obvious, yeah, but can they be sometimes harmful to the speed of the decision making? Yes. For example, like, yeah, do you have any examples that you can tell about?
100%. Yeah, we wrote a whole essay about it, and we published on my blog about this topic, because it's like, think about it this way. Imagine we have imagine we had like a normal DAO governance process. Well, there is no normal, I guess, but like the typical thing where in order to make a decision, someone needs to write a long ass proposal.
Yeah.
Then there is like for 3 weeks, people are arguing about it on the forum. Then everybody agrees. Then one idiot usually comes in, trashes everything on he doesn't even make any sense. And then it's like the whole initiative is now jeopardized and everyone is confused. And it was like, oh my God, what's going to happen? And then the decision doesn't, is not accepted because there is that one person who disagreed, because we notice negativity and disagreement a lot more than agreement, right? And so it often does like a disproportionate amount of damage, I think, on, on those DAO forums. Imagine if we went like that about this, fundraising and donation and so on. Like it would be completely, first of all, it would be super slow.
Yeah.
I'm not even talking about like traditional charities. That's a whole separate thing. We couldn't do that, So I with decentralization, I think it's very important that people, and let's think about what a DAO is in the first place, right? Because a lot of people have like very rigid, like technical view on that. I think a DAO should be whatever you need it to be, right? Like it's a community with an online, with a blockchain based wallet, and then everything else with a mission.
Yeah.
And so whatever makes sense for that mission that is implementable should be done. Otherwise, you can be decentralized as much as you want, but if your organizational structure does not allow you to get to work towards a mission or to achieve that mission, that's a useless DAO, that's a useless community, right? So I don't actually, it's a common misconception that anyone should be able to join a certain DAO or that anyone should be involved in decision making. That is wrong. People whose intentions are not aligned with the DAO's mission should not be involved in decision making at any point, right? Because that's logical.
Yeah.
So yeah, so in our DAO, our decision making is always directed at like the question we ask ourselves: is this in the interest of Ukraine and Ukrainian people? Are we amplifying the message of the Ukrainian government and Ukrainian voices? Are we giving platform to Ukrainians? Anything else would be wrong, and so we will be like, we are very open, right? And like anyone who is bringing anything of value is super welcome. And I absolutely, like most of our contributors that we have right now who are active, like they just like I just found most of them on on Twitter. Like Cicely, for example, she lives in Denmark. We have an amazing page on Notion that she curates with like helpful Twitter accounts to follow about the Russian invasion. And it was started from her like sending me some links because I asked for them on Twitter, and I was like, oh, if you know all that stuff, like just I'm gonna add you to our Notion and just like run the whole page. And that's what she's been doing like for pretty much for almost 2 months now. And like our designers, our pretty much everyone on the team right now, they were not there from the beginning. Like we're not a cliquey kind of bunch of people. I will often like I found one of them on Instagram, like he was making funny memes, and I dropped him a DM and I was like, yo, do you want to join us like to be our meme guy? Because he was like political memes, and he was like, yeah, I want to know more about the project. And I sent him some stuff and he was like, oh my God, I knew about you. I read about you somewhere, but I didn't know it was you when you messaged me. He was like so excited. It made me really happy. So it's all about like whether it's all about whether your community is and your team is creating something of value for that mission. And that's the most important question that I ask myself. And so with regards to decentralization and like governance and all of that, we had a very helpful call with Gary and Aaron. And so they said to us, they gave us very useful advice. They were like, guys, do you not try to like solve every problem at the same time?
Mhm.
Think about DAO like in terms of like history. It's like time flows like historical eras, right? And they were like, you are now somewhere in the Middle Ages. Don't think that you're gonna wake up tomorrow and become like a modern Tokyo. Okay, that's just not gonna happen. So we do our best, and again, like we work day and night on this DAO, and like we put a lot of thoughts into how things are done. So decentralization, so our governance is going to be formalized more, but it's going to be simple enough to not become actually like an obstacle, in the process, because it's important, and it's one of our biggest strengths right now, that we can change gears very quickly and like change the direction and focus of our work depending on what kind of help Ukraine needs at the moment. So that's your answer.
Okay, thanks. And how do you select new members for the DAO? Like because you've talked a lot about mission, vision, values, and about the processes that you're looking for, like particular people. Like how does the selection process look like? Can anyone, for example, come up to you and say, Alona, I would like to be a part of Ukraine DAO. I can contribute. So what happens next?
That's very often what happens. So we have a volunteer form that I actually haven't even gone through all the answers on that, but I'm trying to. A lot of people reach out for help, and again, I guess I always I look at I try to have a call with them. I think it's much easier to understand who you are talking about when you like actually hear their voice. And sometimes like some people who were like critical about us online, and they've actually become our contributors now, because I always say to them, so some people, there is this skepticism about crypto or us in particular sometimes, and I'm always like, call me. And so I have a 5-minute call with them, and the attitude usually changes very, very fast. And so people who reach out to us, I try to look at their skill set. Some people are brought in by someone else, obviously. It's all about like whether they have actual Ukraine's interests at the heart of what motivates them. Because if they don't, then like then there is other organizations that they can go to. But again, it's going to be easier once our docs are better developed and processes are better developed. Then it will be easier to kind of screen them. But the general policy, I would say that again, this is like a bit of advice from my other projects as well. First of all, there has to be a procedure for offboarding too. Offboarding is it's a natural thing that should be happening. It should not be a drama.
Yeah.
It should not be like the end of the world and everyone is arguing. So have a procedure for offboarding as well as for onboarding, and onboard slowly, offboard quickly. That would be my advice in this, because it takes time to understand who is in front of you, especially in Web3, because it's just like the kind of half anonymous sometimes nature of things. So try to, I always try to get to know people that I know that want to work with us better. And like so far, most of them have been absolutely amazing.
Nice.
And yeah, anyone can reach out to us and offer help. And if we require that kind of help at the time, of course, we will be grateful for it. That's how everyone joined us.
And how many people are currently involved in Ukraine DAO?
Oh. That is a question that I'm often asked, and I'm I'm always a bit lost when I hear it, because I don't even. It depends on what do you consider involvement, right? We have like 18,000 followers on Twitter. Then there is like 2,000 people in our Discord or something. Then there are people who are not in our Discord, but they are like contributing with that translations or something for the blog or something else. So it's like, who counts, right? I think that everyone who does something of value to us or supports us, they count. Then obviously there is contributors who work in actual group chats, working groups. I would say there is probably about 50 people, I think, and something that I also useful advice from this book, the advantage is that you cannot have too many people in decision making if you want to get somewhere with the certain project. So what makes sense to me is that particular working group, there is people who are knowledgeable in something in that working group, and they should be making decisions. And yeah, of course, they should take in feedback from others. But if when you present a problem to like 200 people, that's I can almost guarantee you that there is going to be a multitude of opinions. A lot of those people will voice opinions that they just do not know what they're talking about, and that would be myself included. And so that's not how you approach good decision making. It's not productive. And so I would say probably about 50 people, and that's from those who like regularly contribute. And then we also have hundreds of people who have contributed in other ways, and obviously almost 4,000 people, I think, have donated to Ukraine DAO. We are making a Dune Analytics dashboard that will show, we almost completed it already. It will show, like in real time, all the incoming and like all the incoming donations and outgoing and where they went. So I don't like regular seasonal reporting. I think this is the most boring thing in the world to me. So I think it would be cool if we had like just a dashboard that's showing everything live, and so that would just remove any, obviously you can see it on either scan anyway, but for people who are not like maybe super fluent in Web3, there should be like a way for them to see what's happening to the treasury easily.
Yeah, Ukraine DAO sounds like a fast-growing startup now, and like almost any startup has a like specific, well-defined goal, like towards which it's moving. Does the Ukraine DAO has any goals? Like, are you setting any specific goals?
Yeah. So again, sharing advice from other people. Dmitry Ivanov, Dima Buterin's childhood friend, he gave us very helpful advice, like do not be afraid to adjust even when like when you wrote your mission. Yeah, people are often scared. Like, oh my God, they treat it like, I don't know, like the American Constitution. And I heard this funny joke recently that if the people who wrote it came, if they resurrected now, they'd be horrified and they'd be like, they would say, have you guys not written anything new? You need to like adjust your documentation as you go along. And so our that manifesto that we wrote, we constantly like adjust it, the word, depending on what's happening. So for example, we've been put in contact with the Ministry of Digital Transformation of Ukraine recently, and it's a huge honor for us to be to speak to them, to have the contact with them. And I would say that right now for Ukraine, that's kind of like information war and countering Russian propaganda. That is right now on top of our priority list. So demanding from other countries to help to arm Ukraine, because we need. That is the only thing that will that can save us. That's the only thing that will make an actual difference right now. So if you don't get the weapons that we need, you can give us as much money as you want. We cannot you cannot do anything, like even to buy those weapons, it takes time, it's going to take too long. So we need like those actual weapons already, right? So that's what we've been focusing on. And so in terms of the mission is to basically harness the power of Web3 tech and community to support Ukraine. And what supporting Ukraine means changes, unfortunately, constantly. And we adjust our documentation based on that. So we speak to Ukrainian people on the ground, we speak to volunteer networks on the ground, we speak to Ukrainian officials, we ask them, what do you guys need? And on that basis, we adjust what we dedicate most of our time to. So right now it says in our Notion, in our Twitter profile, current focus, #Arm Ukraine Now. That's that's what we concentrate on at the moment.
That's really cool that you're flexible on the goals that you are setting, which depend on what Ukraine actually needs. But does Ukraine DAO has any problems like that you need to solve, or that maybe any problems that might arise in the future that you're expecting?
Problems, again, organizational health right now, right? And it's all solvable problems that like personally, my biggest one of the biggest failures is that I don't yet have everything in place that I can give to a new person joining, and they'll find out from that one thing how they can like everything that we do and how they can contribute, right? So I've got like some pages that we've written up, the volunteer form to fill out and so on, but it's all kind of, I cannot say, okay, it's done. This is what you need. And obviously whatever is produced on that aspect, it's going to be adjusted all the time anyway, right? Because you need to keep it relevant. But that is that's something on top of my priority list, kind of creating a structure for people to self-manage, to manage their work. And it's going to be just like to make sure that whatever they do is just in line with what we are about again, right? So they don't like, I don't know, go to donate to the Red Cross or something else. But yeah, so creating that process for, it's called DAO, it's a trendy word, DAO facilitation, right? So you don't manage a DAO, you facilitate for other people to self-manage. So improving on that side, I would say that would be one of the most important things for us at the moment.
Okay. Do you expect any problems with the like regulators or maybe compliance and stuff like that?
Not really, because again, Ukraine is super. We have some DAO lawyers advising us, and I've been having conversations with them. I would say like it's at the moment we only donate funds to Ukrainian entities. The funds are going to Ukraine, which I think that it should stay that way. And so things would be different if we were making donations to other foreign charities. I do not expect that the Ukrainian government is going to cause us any issues. I would be very surprised if that happened. We'll do our best to not to not cause any trouble. But I just think, it's like a lot of people compare DAOs to like LLCs, right?
Yeah.
My view is like, if you want to set up a company, set up a company. If you want to set up a traditional charity, set up a charity. If you're like it is, it should be. Again, DAOs, they're so different. Like our DAO, it's like its structure, what its nature, right? It's very different from most other ones, and so you cannot. It would be very hard to bundle it with something else, and it would be wrong. So I think that's the beauty of DAOs, is that you can kind of make it what you need it to be, right? And so, like I not like mad about the idea of like incorporating it as something at the moment. It may change, it may change in the future, but I don't currently, we don't currently have any problems, and I hope we won't have them. That's that's all I can say.
Okay, I think I have like two more questions about Ukraine DAO, and then we will move on to the next section. Okay,
Yeah.
so, so the first question is, how do you see, how do you envision Ukraine DAO, for example, in like 5 years? How do you see it?
That's again, it's a common question that I get. I have no idea. They say, if you want to make the god laugh, tell him about your plans, right? I had no idea that I was going to be involved in this DAO, like what 2 months ago, right? Things change so fast right now, especially since this invasion started. It's impossible to know what's going to happen tomorrow, unfortunately, and it's hard. It makes it hard for us to plan our work, because you want to have some, Dima calls it a chiare or chiare. There is this
Yeah,
objective key,
key result.
yeah, this
Yeah.
framework for like or making sure that you get to your goal, right? And it's so hard to implement it. First of all, with DAOs, we talked about it to other people, and things are even harder by, like, you don't exist in the normal environments in which organizations normally operate. And so it's like, a lot of our contributors, they work from bomb shelters, and you never know whether they are going to be even, if they will have a chance to rest at night, because there will be sometimes an air raid siren going off, or all night or all day. Sometimes it's gotten to the point where sometimes I look at, I see the news about the air raid in a certain region, and I'm like, oh, you is going to be tired again in the morning, one of our contributors. That's it's become a tragic reality of Ukrainian people, and so it's so hard to say what we will be doing in 5 years, because you just don't know what's going to happen to Ukraine tomorrow, and it's all going to depend on that. So whatever Ukraine needs, I hope that we will be able to be helpful to it. And I obviously, I don't know if I will be around, but I will do my best to organize things in a way that will allow other people to then do work that's of maximum help.
So basically, you're building a flexible organization which can adapt to any environment and, for example, help Ukraine or maybe other causes which will exist in the future.
Yeah, so I've been asked about this, about other causes, and I wanted to be a long-term effort of helping Ukraine. But someone asked me on Twitter, there's people sometimes they like to throw in a cheeky question or something that they consider a cheeky question. And I said to them, because they're like, there is other people suffering in the world. I know, unfortunately, it's true. But the damage that has been done to Ukraine already, and it's not, unfortunately, I don't think it's the worst of it, is so huge that there is going to be enough work in Ukraine, not just for our DAO, but for many other organizations, And so Ukraine DAO is going to be focused on helping Ukraine.
Okay.
For other countries, there should be other DAOs and other organizations, So if you don't have that sense of direction, then yeah, it's there's no point.
Okay. So Ukraine DAO will be whatever it needs to be to help Ukraine in any case. Cool.
I hope,
That's
I hope
nice.
so.
So you mentioned the rebuilding process of Ukraine after the war is over, and it's really cool that you are talking about this because it gives some hope, and I can see a lot of other people are talking about this as well. So how do you see Ukraine DAO? How do you see Ukraine's DAO role in rebuilding Ukraine?
I think it's in our nature. It's a very Ukrainian thing to be like. I saw pictures from Bucha today, and it's like the rate at which the journalist said, who tweeted it, he was like, I've never seen anything like that. That street where everything was like absolute fucking ruin. It looks completely normal now. So we just like we care about what we have, unlike Russian people. And so we will rebuild Ukraine very very fast, I hope, after this. But again, it's important. It's hard to talk about it now because we don't know the extent of destruction that Ukraine is gonna suffer, right? So the key focus right now is to help stop this war, because without that we will not be able to, whatever, some basic reconstruction is happening, but there can be no like long-term efforts to rebuild it if we know that they can come back and do all this damage again. So right now, I try to solve problems as I face them, so I don't spend an awful amount of time thinking, how are we going to be rebuilding Ukraine once the worst ends? I don't know when, right? So, and also it's like, we have, for example, we have connections today that we didn't have a week ago. And in a week's time, or in a month's time, or in a year's time, we will have, this is going to be a completely different situation. So it would be unproductive to think about the future by considering what we have today, right? And also we've been introduced to the Ministry of Infrastructure as well. So I've spoken to Mustafa Nayam, who's the deputy minister, and so I'm sure that's going something helpful will come out of that working group as well. We will help them in whichever way they let us know, whichever help they need, basically.
Okay, thanks. So let's talk a bit about crypto community in general and about its role in the war. So crypto community has raised a lot of money for Ukraine, considering a lot of money, 200 million, if I'm not mistaken, so far. But at the same time, Ukraine spends tens of billions dollars per month on the war. So do you think the crypto community can do more, or do you think it is doing enough? Or what are more ways to raise money to help Ukraine that the crypto community can engage in?
Okay, so considering military budgets, crypto donations, it's I know people say it's like a drop in the ocean, but I think the impact of that fundraising, sorry, it goes far beyond money. So, for example, Ukraine DAO has been featured in over 200 publications since its inception. Some of them are articles or videos direct or interviews directly about specifically about us, or but most of them they talk about the wider context and other organizations that are helping Ukraine, that are doing great work to help. And so it's not only it changes public perception of crypto itself, right? Because lots of people are super skeptical about crypto, and so I'm often told, "Oh, I thought crypto was a scam, and then I saw Ukraine DAO." So it's so funny to me. But I'm like, good. If that's what changed your mind, that's good. So for a lot of people, it's the first time they're like, "Oh, they've been able to raise a lot very quickly and to distribute it quickly, because there is no bank who can tell us no, you can be," or there is Patreon, for example, blocked Comeback Live's page. There was no warning. It doesn't agree with our policies. Fuck your policies then. I was infuriated by that. It's just delusional to even to not provide them with support they need and to be neutral these days. It's something that is just using woke language, it gets me triggered, because you're shooting yourself, whoever you are and wherever you are in the world, you're shooting yourself in your leg while doing that. And so, yeah, there is that aspect, and there is also, most importantly, it creates conversations about Ukraine, right? And
Okay.
it's super important to not, like, the news cycle is very short these days, and it's like 1 second everyone is talking about Ukraine, another day everyone is talking who Will Smith slapped at the Oscar ceremony, and so it's important to kind of stay in that in the picture. And so it's important that people continue to talk about Ukraine, and so that is why I've been doing lots of like been taking part in lots of panel discussions, trying to like speak to as many journalists we can, because that is the most, like, attention span is very short these days, and if you're not there, if you don't know anyone from Ukraine, it falls out from your from your view very fast, unfortunately. And so it's very important. All those donations, they are also important because they are covered by the media very often, and so that is
Yeah.
another opportunity to talk about Ukraine and to help it. If you talk about it, that's sometimes the best thing that someone can do for Ukrainians, because people often tell me, I feel so helpless. I'm like, why? You shouldn't. That attitude that you cannot change things is it should go. Like, that notion of like personal responsibility to me is very natural. But I've
Yeah.
realized that some people just feel they just don't know what to do, and I'm like, talk about Ukraine at least. Like, if you see your neighbor, someone else, like, you go walk your dog, like, bring it up in the conversation whenever it's appropriate. That's the best thing that you can do very
Okay.
often.
So let's talk about this from Ukraine's point of view. Do you think there is anything Ukraine can do to attract more help and more donations from the crypto community? Like Ukraine as a government, for example.
The Ukrainian government is doing an incredible job. Yesterday or the day before yesterday, we were at, there was an online event by Meta History, and they had like, there was like a closing auction ceremony. Meta History is like, it's like an NFT project about Russia's war crimes in Ukraine, excellent project. And so there was this beautiful virtual space that was organized by Party Space, and there was a panel discussion about the role of NFTs in crypto donations for Ukraine. And so Alex Vornikov, the deputy minister of Deputy Minister of Digital Transformation of Ukraine, he was there, and he's like so involved and engaged with the community that my answer my answer to the question would be no. Ukraine could not be more engaged, because Ukraine is engaged as fuck. It's like the work that they do, the bots that we have in Ukraine for all sorts of things, they are mind blowing for Europeans and any other countries. I saw on Twitter the other day, someone was discussing, they were like, guys, they have bots that they use to like report like enemy equipment to the Ministry of Defense. I was like, I was like, that meanwhile Zelensky is looking at his phone and he's like really like kind of angry. I was like, what are they talking about? Of course we have a Telegram bot for that. It's just like, you take it for granted when you're Ukrainian, and people don't, obviously not everyone fortunately needs a bot in other countries for reporting enemy equipment, but in terms of like just in general, like development of IT industry and the kind of integration of it with the government, it's outstanding. I don't think any other countries is like as developed in that sense, and so they could not be doing a better job. I don't think so.
Amazing. Okay, so we have an interesting question from one of the artists. So the question is, I'm just saying like literally, how do I find meaning during the wartime, given that my house is destroyed and some of my friends have died? So how do I find meaning in all of this, given that I don't even know whether the war will be over anytime soon?
First of all, very sorry to hear. Really gonna take a second to think through how to address it. I read a book when I was a teenager that's called Man in, it's by Victor
Search for
Frankl.
meaning, yeah.
Search for Man's Search for Meaning. Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's a book that I go back to quite often these days. Lots of lots of wisdom in it. It's a book written by a I think he's a psychotherapist, a psychoanalyst, who went through a Nazi concentration camp. He was spent a long time there, I can't remember how long, and he survived. And he talks about how he found he had to look. He was obviously in absolutely like inhumane conditions, and how he looked for purpose in that environment, and like how do you find that like what's the point of living, what's the like why carry on, right? And he found it. And I would again, I'm not in the position to give advice here, but that book is it's worth looking at if you are struggling to kind of find meaning in this in life right now. And yeah, a couple I just opened some quotes from it on Goodreads to kind of remind myself about some wisdom in here. In some ways, he says, suffering ceases to be suffering at the moment it finds a meaning, such as the meaning of a sacrifice. You know what's helped? Like, obviously, like I've been fortunate to not go through what the person who asked this question has been through, but very often I had like really bad mental health days, and that would be caused by me looking at this world and thinking, how is it real? You know, how can people be so cynical about Ukrainian lives of Ukrainian people? How could they be letting it happen when they can help and knowingly like blame ourselves or not, or block the help that we need to survive? Like our civilians, our defenders' lives matter. They are our heroes. That's the best people of our nation. And then our civilians, like the babies, are killed by Russian airstrikes every day. Like, what kind of person do you need to be to not help and to, like, in Germany, for example, yesterday I was absolutely furious when I saw that a group of intellectuals,
Yeah.
scumbags, they wrote a letter to Scholz, to the Chancellor of Germany. Another just, I despise that man very much. They wrote him a letter in which they talk about, they basically advised to not provide Ukraine with any help, and Ukraine should surrender, and blah, 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 blah. And I posted about this yesterday in this, I started a blog. It's called Drifting with Ukraine, and it's a blog about everything about about Ukraine DAO, but I also like talk about what's happening in the world with Ukraine. And so I just they advise to, they say that the Ukrainian army is inferior to the Russian one, and it does not have a chance to win. And I just, you know, when I see stuff like that, I'm just like, how has it become our reality? And so very often, like, the only thing that gets me through the day is like helping someone. You know, like if you know that you are able to help someone needs you, that can sometimes keep you here, you know, because Otherwise, I can imagine how a lot of people will feel, and for the right reason, they'll be like, I just want to be here, and that's it's a thought that, like, if we are honest, I think many people have had. I have had it, and it's actually a reasonable reaction to what's happening, right? Because it's just painful sometimes. Like, you cannot watch the news without crying. Like, you open the news about Ukraine every day, and it's like it says sensitive content. It's like everything that you see there is like marked with that thing of the sensitive content warning, and it's heartbreaking. So if you do that every day, that pretty much what everybody does, it takes the toll on you. And so to me, the best way to address that has been to be like, okay, I cannot prevent the airstrikes and so on, but I can be helpful in some way to someone from here, or to someone who's like either fighting on the ground or has suffered in any way from that. So yeah, I mean, it's a very hard question, because I can understand how I cannot understand how that feels, and so it would not. I don't have the arrogance to give advice to someone like that. But yeah, if you need any support or any kind of help, reach out to us, and we'll do our best. We also have a mental health support project that's called Mindful Webs. It's run by our co-founders, wife Masha. She was born in Kiev. She lives in LA now. So we have like weekly Twitter spaces where we kind of we don't record them, so that people kind of can come in and just share however they feel. It's just like about we collect like some resources that are helpful for people dealing with like war-related trauma as well. Rape, unfortunately, that's a very common problem right now. Russians use rape as a weapon, kind of against like Ukrainians, and they don't, as I say, they do not discriminate. So they just rape everyone, men, women, children. Like no one is safe. So yeah, I had to put together a notion with other contributors recently about that. How do you try to cope with that? So yeah, I guess that's what how it is.
Yeah, thanks. I think that's the question that a lot of people in Ukraine are now asking themselves. I keep hearing it from like different peoples. For example, I was approached by my friend who is also a startup founder, and he told me like, I don't see a point in building a company now. Like there is a war. It just doesn't make sense. It's not important anymore. And a lot of people think the same, and like a lot of people are are about to give up.
Yeah.
And this is really sad.
I saw it on Twitter yesterday. Like, it's been like almost 60 days since my mom hasn't asked when she's gonna have grandchildren, right? Like, it's like you see this and you're like, how can I bring a child into this world? Like, it's a scary place. Like, I used to think that hell doesn't exist, and now it's here. It's in Mariupol happening right now, and I do like it's beyond me how we've allowed for this to happen. And it's a conversation that I had with Dima many times. Every time I have like a mini breakdown, I reach out to someone who I can like look for support from them. And Dima said to me something very wise once. Dima says something wise every day in general, but that day I was really angry about the fact that we've allowed for this to get to this point, because it was so obvious what kind of person Putin was. It's not like it's to people who kind of didn't follow the news or whatever, or Ukraine, Russia stuff in general. They're shocked, right? But to Ukrainians, it was coming for a long time. This is not the first time Putin or Russia is attacked another country for no reason and under some false excuse, and committing war crimes. It's everything that they're doing in Ukraine is just by their usual guidebook. And so it was completely preventable, unfortunately, right? So if other countries, Western in particular, Germany in particular, if they did not facilitate them, by relying or overly relying on Russian energy sources, this would not be happening right now. If they were not selling so much weapons to Russia, despite finding a loophole in the EU embargo that was implemented in 2015, this would not be happening right now. And so when I see like people who are from like Germany and France mad at me on Twitter, I'm always like, you are mad at me because they are so often insulted by what I say. I'm shadow banned on Twitter. So my tweets, like, you need to set alerts if you want to see them, otherwise probably they won't come up in the feed. Ukraine DAO's Twitter has been shadowed, like pretty much like all my accounts on every social, our team's accounts on social networks, they've been shadow banned. And so it's I've been told that it's very hard to get out of the shadow ban. So I'm not sure if anybody knows how to help me. Please reach out, because it's like we've been silenced. Ukrainian voices are being silenced. Russian propaganda channels have no problem whatsoever on social media. Ukrainian activists, volunteers, just say goodbye to them, and it's so unfair. It also angers me a lot because it's not like spreading lies is not freedom of speech, so platforms like Russia Today and Russian officials should not have access to social media. If you remove Donald Trump, please remove Margarita Simonyan as well. It's just infuriating. And I've been trying to reach out to as many people as I can and talk about it as much as I can. But it's so hard to do anything about it.
Okay, let's talk about some positive things.
Yeah.
Like the first thing you'll do when you find out that Ukraine won the war.
I will go to Ukraine. That is my absolute dream. That I'm like obsessed with it. So the documentary crew that is making they're making a Ethereum documentary. They came to film at my house in the first few days of the invasion, and we stayed in contact. And the other day they asked me, like, do you ever think of like going back? And I'm like, I think about it every day. I've like fought off the urge to kind of back everything up and just try to like get there many times. And so like that is going to be the best day in my life. And I understand that Ukraine that I saw last time, that was last year when I went there in summer, doesn't exist anymore, but also the Alona who went there last year, myself, she doesn't exist anymore either. And so it's just going to be a very different life. And I realized that I want to move there, like once things are peaceful in Ukraine, I want to live there. So I want to be spending I would put it this way, I want to be spending most of my time in Ukraine, because that's where I'll be needed more, right? So someone will have to rebuild it, and I think that everyone should start from themselves. And so we can express our discontentment about other people and other countries not doing enough, but it's also important that every individual person does everything they can. So I am very excited. On the positive note here, I'm super excited to go to Ukraine once it's safe to do that.
Do you know like top 3 places you would visit when you come to Ukraine?
Yeah, I will visit my hometown that I don't want to disclose right now. I try to like not over publicize it. I will go to Lviv. I love Lviv. I love the Carpathians. Bukovel is very beautiful. And I'll go to Kiev. I would probably live there. Out of all places.
Kiev is amazing. I miss it as well.
Are you from there?
No, I'm from somewhere near your hometown.
Oh my god, right. I'm sorry. Yeah, you got it. I'm sorry. I have dory fish, you know, the dory fish from Finding Nemo.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
have 5 seconds memory.
Well, I think we've run out of the questions. Maybe there is anything else you want to say to Ukraine, to Ukrainians, to the community.
Oh god. There are so many things. There are so many things, but I wanted to talk about how proud I am of our people. Like every day I look at my parents who are working to we had trucking as our family business before the invasion, and I'm absolutely amazed every day by my mom and dad. They were they're very stoic, like they're much more resilient than I expected them to be. And even like before the invasion, they were like, I remember I asked my dad, I was like, we were talking about the likelihood of it happening, and he said that he complained about people who were buying panic buying flats in Lviv because Lviv was considered to be safer, right? And I was like, of course people are scared. Of course they are scared. Like we have one of the biggest armies in the world at our doorstep at the border. And he said to me, if you have a big crazy dog running around your fence of your house and it's barking, it doesn't mean that it's going to bite. And I was like, yeah, but it can still bite. And he was like, well, if it's going to bite, then it will just choke on us and die, that regime, right? And so it's like, if you have to be that bone in which it chokes for it to die, then so be it. And and it's happening right now. That's what we're seeing, you know. They are choking on Ukraine, and it's heartbreaking that we are paying for that with our lives, with Ukrainian lives, and it's heartbreaking to see that we are not getting all the help that we need, that we ask for, that we deserve to have. But in general, like one of the things that are important to me about Ukraine DAO and about every other aspect of work that I do, I have noticed just an outrageous arrogance from some Western people to like condescending, patronizing attitude to Ukrainians. Ukrainians know so much more about Russia than any other, pretty much only Russia's close neighbor, neighbors can understand us, right? And that is why you see a huge difference, like between countries who are neighboring Russia that help for Ukraine and countries who are further away. There is a reason for that, right? Because they know what's going to happen to them if Ukraine falls. That's why they are, and we are super grateful to them. But that is one of the biggest reasons why they are so much involved. Whereas it's harder to understand from people from countries who are like further away and they haven't seen this. And so all those like Western experts, I am very skeptical about them. And whenever I hear someone say, oh, like we shouldn't, like Germans said it all in the beginning, we shouldn't give weapons to Ukraine because they will take too long it's going to take too long to train them up. Shut the fuck up. Honestly, if those weapons were given to us in the beginning, we would have already trained our guys up on that, and they can do it much faster than like what they have, their expectations, their standards tell them, you know. And so a great example of our military masters here. I'm super proud of it. Just so I cannot explain to you how happy every Ukrainian person was to see this image. And that is a testament to the skill of our army. It's an incredible achievement that, like, on the night when it happened, I was in different Twitter spaces, like Walter Report included, where they often have like different like open intelligence and like military experts, and they were all like so shocked because this worship, you are not supposed to be able to fuck it up like that. I'm sorry for my friends. And we did. So whoever is like underestimating or giving some kind of forecast about how soon Ukraine will fall or how strong our army is, just don't. Keep that stupid opinion to yourself. Nobody has any kind of timeline now. Nobody has no one, even ourselves, we underestimate ourselves a lot, and we kind of this like in concept of us being inferior to like Europeans with like European values, that it turned out they don't mean shit. You know, they do not mean shit. We've been convinced by the most corrupt countries that we are too corrupt to join the EU or to join NATO. It's just infuriating. And so I saw a Twitter thread, for example, the other day with like reputable journalist, first-rate journalist covering Ukraine. That person was recommending to follow this journalist. I looked at the list. Oh my goodness. You know, I saw the journalist that I hope he never comes back to Ukraine, because he tweeted recently that he's coming back. I was like, please, Christopher, don't, just like, do not, like, that guy, his name is Christopher Miller. He was looking for Ukrainian Nazis everywhere in Ukraine. Then he spent like ages doing that. And then recently he discovered the Nazi, like some Nazi emblem on a Russian soldier, and Ukrainian Twitter was like, yeah, that's what we've been trying to tell you for the last few years whilst you were looking for Ukrainian Nazis, you know. And whoever is concerned, like, I'm sick and tired about hearing about Azov Battalion. That's another thing that I wanted to mention. It's just gets on my nerves so much. Whoever is more worried about Azov or like their patches they wear or something else, whoever is more concerned with that, like, that is a fake narrative from Russian propaganda that they are some scary Nazis, that like Ukraine needs to solve that before it can like ask for help. And I'm always like, what did they do? Like, how did Ukraine look with those quote unquote Nazis? And what's happening now when the actual Nazis came? You know, like, it's just mind-boggling to me that people still buy that bullshit story, bullshit narrative about Azov being Nazis. They are not Nazis. They are defending people, like everyone, Ukrainian people and everyone in the world, and that's what you still hear about them. And so this attitude has to go. Like, Ukrainian people should be heard. There should not be a panel discussion about Ukraine with a bunch of Western experts, a Russian speaker who should not be there in the first place very often, and with no Ukrainian person. That you hear, I see that all the time, and I'm like, what are you guys doing there? You know, and like all those like stories about Ukraine, like Russian speakers being oppressed in Ukraine. I cannot believe that people still talk about that. You know, Russia is killing people right now in cities that are predominantly Russian speaking. That's just because they just haven't got to the Ukrainian speak. Like, okay, and something to mention is that there is no like clear distinction, right? Where we are from, we speak most people in Ukraine speak both Russian and Ukrainian. It's just like depending on the context, you change. Sometimes you speak Ukrainian, sometimes you speak Russian, sometimes you speak Surzik, right? Which is like a mixture of the two. So there is no such thing as like a Russian speaking Ukrainian who only like always, well, we don't like, it's not black and white. We don't separate ourselves on that basis. And I think it's very dangerous to do that. And that's been weaponized against us by Russian propaganda. And so, yeah, all the fake news have to be fought very hard, because it's a weapon, and that weapon is killing Ukrainians right now. So the biggest, the most important thing that I ask everyone, like, listen to Ukrainians. Okay, don't I see Russian propaganda almost from every media platform. Like, it's so horrible. And like, that's why we keep that page with info sources, Twitter accounts to follow, for example, in our Notion, because it has a huge list of like independent journalists that you can follow, or just like Ukrainian people in general. Like, if you want to follow what's happening in Ukraine, if you want to understand Ukraine, listen to Ukrainians. I know it's like an insane idea to some people, but you learn about Ukraine by listening from Ukrainians. And that's for Ukrainians to finally be heard. I think that is the most, that's the most important thing for me to do, and to change that attitude to Ukrainians, where we are not listened to, or we are considered like just like a witness in this big game of big players that's happening. Like, we are the big player, we are the superpower, in my view, in Europe right now, because every superpower is turns out to be yeah, it's just completely compromised narratives.
Well, thank you, Alona. It's been really inspiring and insightful. Personally, for me, the main takeaway from this conversation is that there are no civilians in Ukraine now. Everyone should fight. And a lot of people are actually asking how they can help. And a lot of people think that they cannot help beyond like holding a weapon and going to the battle. But the thing is, the infrastructure now allows to help like in any field possible. And I think that it's really important to combine your desire to help Ukraine with your real passion and with something that you are good at doing it. For example, if you're an NFT artist, if you are just an artist, you can drop an NFT and then donate all the money to Ukraine. If you are a game developer, you can develop a game and then raise money and donate to Ukraine. If you're a community builder, you can create your own DAO and then donate to Ukraine $8 million.
We need community builders, by the way. We need
community builders
managers
apply to Ukraine DAO. So everyone should help, and everything is going to be all right only if you're united and only if everyone is helping Ukraine.
100%.
Thanks, Alona.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure to talk to you.
It was a pleasure talking to you as well.